All right. Hello, little sweethearts.
Hello, little sweethearts for
Valentine's Day. Hope you guys had the best Valentine's Day.
Yeah, hope you guys
I was not with my husband, unfortunately. It's in DC.
Oh, no.
But
We'll do a whole podcast on your DC recap.
yeah. But we celebrated afterwards.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
all good.
All good. So we hope you guys felt so loved.
Yes.
If you celebrate, some people don't. That's okay.
Some people don't. But we are back with our, in my opinion, segment.
Yeah.
We should just start calling it our IMO.
IMO, baby.
IMO.
Yeah.
We are back with that. So let's get to it.
Let's get straight into it. And we have something a little bit, this is, I feel like, a little bit niche.
Yeah.
If you will, but the park drop.
Yeah.
Since in honor of Valentine's Day, Miss Chelsea Park,
Herself.
which, by the way, that's her middle name, not her last name. But she was doing a drop for Valentine's Day.
It was very cute.
And very cute colors, pink, red, all the vibes. And listen, it's one of those like influencer brands we know have probably seen.
We know. Okay.
Yeah, we know that there is scarcity marketing attached to it,
Yes.
which means it's just going to sell out in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But I will say I ended up getting something from the tonal drop with no issues whatsoever. Like it was the easiest thing. I was on right at 10 a.m. when they dropped it. So, I mean, but I will say I checked like a few hours later and they still had stock. So it did not sell out like
It wasn't
the same
as
way.
hot as the Valentine's
It was not as
drop.
hot. So we all get our hopes up. And not only we got our hopes up, Miss Chelsea got her hopes up. And this is the thing. Okay, this is the bone I had to pick.
Yeah.
First of all, it sold out within like
0.2 seconds.
literally
Yeah.
unthinkable amount of seconds.
Yeah.
A lot of people were very upset because a lot of it was like website glitching.
Yeah.
So you were unable to like check out even though you had stuff in your cart. But anyways, the gifting to other influencers to like market this product, and there just was not enough product. So I think people were upset for a lot of reasons. One, she was not transparent about the stock she actually had, which she did come out and apologize and say like, I should have been more transparent about what I thought about the stock. But she did say, I think they had like 80,000 people on the website that morning, and their average is usually like 20.
Oh.
So she said it was the most stocked collection she's done yet. But if you didn't get one, you kind of feel our pain. Taylor actually, she got on later.
But you know what?
Yeah.
I got on like 10:05
Yeah, everything was gone.
and it was all gone.
Well, what was weird about it is you had to put stuff in your cart and then you had to wait in line to check out. And as you're waiting in line to check out, your items were not secure. So like, I was trying to get one for my friend in Georgia and Morgan, shout out Morgan. I was trying to get one for her too. And so I had two and hers went out like that. It dropped from my cart. It just said sold out. And then the one that I wanted, within like 5 minutes of me waiting in line, it sold out. So it's just kind of like silly.
So in our opinion, that was a little rough.
In our opinion, don't fall for it. Just kidding.
She did drop her like
rolling
statement
my
about it.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I thought it was a good statement.
Very, very, very PR, if you will.
Oh, very PR, but you know.
Okay, also, speaking of other like influencing stuff,
Yes.
do you listen to That's the Point?
Well, you know, I dabble. Okay.
She dabbles in it.
I dabble.
There's a reason I'm asking
Her and
this.
Bailey love That's the Point and basically try to get me onto it. I understand the appeal. I'm not obsessed.
Okay. cut the mics. Cut the camera. I will say I have never purchased merch from like, I mean, I do have the Park sweatshirt, but like from a podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
And before Park.
I say, but you have That's the Point.
I have
Merch.
2 That's the Point sweatshirts.
2, not
2 of them.
1.
I know.
Okay?
I have a problem with sweatshirts.
I did love their idea though of all the things they say.
Yes.
That's a really good. Yeah, that's a good
It is
one.
a really good one. But I will say, if you guys have not listened to That's the Point, it's really funny.
It is really
And
funny.
something that I really appreciate about their podcast is I feel like they just simply do not care. Like the way that Kristen is so savage and she'll just say whatever she wants, and like her and John like joke back and forth with each other is so funny.
Yeah.
I find myself like laughing out loud
Yeah.
and I want to be that, but I'm so scared of people.
Yeah. But you know what?
That's the TikTok trauma.
Exactly. And there's a whole thing that is attached to us and being pastors' wives that it's part of our podcast, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So in our opinion, we think that it's awesome that Kristen can do that.
This is an eyesore. I'm going to put it back down on the floor.
In our opinion, we love that Kristen can do that. We wish we could do that.
Yeah.
You know what? Who says we can't?
Who says we can't?
You know?
I don't say that we can't. We can.
So, yeah, that's great. So I think that my next, in my opinion, Abby's not going to like.
Okay. Tell me.
I sent my Garmin back. I knew she was.
You didn't even tell me.
I know, because
it was an Oura ring.
I bought one.
Are you wearing it?
No, I don't have it yet.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think you should have a Garmin.
No, okay, because
if you were running,
yes, valid. That's what I was gonna say. It was a very valid purchase at the time because I was training for the half, and when I was using it to run, I was like, this is perfect. It's a runner's watch.
Yeah,
it is great. I actually did like it. It does have a lot of other stuff on it. Like you can track Pilates and all the things that I do on it. But it's just the most beneficial for running.
Yeah, it really is. I would totally agree.
So I was like, I'm going to get the Oura ring. And so I just got lucky that my Garmin was still in the return window.
Yeah.
And so I was able to just return it and swap it for the Oura because they were the exact same price.
No, that's a slay.
Yeah.
I totally support that.
Yes. So in my opinion, I think I might end up liking the Oura better.
You will. So my sister has an Oura ring.
Oh, does she?
She loves it. So I think you'll love it.
Yeah. It'll be here this week.
Me, on the other hand, I'm over here with my...
I do like it.
Bulky.
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I just think when I stopped running, it didn't have that
There's
same
no reason,
effect,
truly.
You know?
Yeah.
So you got another one in your opinion?
In my opinion, I will say that... Let me make it a little juicy.
Okay. We love juicy.
In my opinion... I'm trying to think of current events that happened.
Okay.
That I can give my opinion on. Because I feel like that's the tea.
Well, listen, the ongoing one, like Blake and Justin, that's just going to be ongoing for like, I feel like there's new updates.
No, I do
week.
have something to say about this.
Yeah. Okay.
So I watched this whole TikTok. What's his name? He has done the whole thing.
Yes.
I can't remember his name.
The one that they tried to cancel his TikTok.
And TikTok removed his video.
Yes.
And then he basically threatened to sue TikTok.
Yes.
For infringing on freedom of speech. And they reinstated his video. But he had some information. And one of them is apparently the information that he disclosed is, if anyone is familiar with reading, Frida McFadden has a book called The Housemaid. And they're turning
reading it right now.
It's so good. They're turning it into a movie.
Okay.
And the cast of the movie is basically tied up in the Blake Lively.
No, they're not.
Yeah, circle.
No, they're not.
It's really not good. Well, I mean, like, it depends on how you define good.
I'm so sad.
But in my opinion,
does that mean that it's gonna delay or they may not do it?
No, I just don't know if people are gonna be bought into it after this happens. Which apparently they're going to court in March next year.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
Well, I'm behind. I just started reading The Housemaid.
It's so good.
I'm like a quarter of the way into it.
People ask me because I'm a Frida McFadden stan. I think I've read, probably 6 of her books now.
Yeah.
And I finished my last one last night, The Crash. And then I'm reading The Teacher right now. And they're those books that are like so freaking weird.
Yeah.
But as you're reading it, you're like, you can't stop.
Yeah.
But The Housemaid is weird. But they are making it into a movie, so
it gets weirder because I'm only a quarter of the way.
Oh yeah, honey, it gets real weird.
Oh gosh, okay. I don't know if I'm
Remind
prepared.
me again of what that one is about, because I think it's like something with the upstairs.
Yeah, she has to live in the attic. She's the housemaid that has to live in the attic. Yeah,
it's way weirder.
Okay. I'm scared. Yeah. So, do we have any other opinions to give today?
Well, in my opinion, I think that Blake Lively, not fun human. And
I know.
I really, you know what I don't love about that is that I feel like it's really not a good look for like, I don't like that for women that have actually experienced that stuff.
Yeah, this is true.
If the verdict comes out.
Because on the voice receipts and the voice memos and all that, it's really, I think she loved him or like at least had very strong emotional feelings for him.
Yeah.
I do.
And you think her feelings got a little hurt.
Yeah, because I don't think he felt the same way.
Or Ryan found that. Anywho, this is not our business.
Yeah, but it is our opinion.
Okay, so we started the podcast a little bit on a lighthearted note.
Yes, because
today's going to get a little bit...
Today's heavier,
if you will.
And I don't know. Sometimes when we record the heavier podcasts, I get in my car and I just feel like I need to just breathe for a minute.
Literally.
So that will be me after this episode.
100%. So today we're going to dive into the topic of like pain, forgiveness, and boundaries in personal relationships. Yeah. Whether that's through family or friendships or even coworkers. Yeah. Just different facets of pain we've experienced and how we have navigated that and how that has impacted us.
And, we may get inspiration from our pastor quite often.
He do be inspiring.
He did a message on pain and...
Yeah, it was really good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
And I told Abby this. He just happened to say in his message that people who are optimistic live much longer, which is a statistic. And look at my shirt.
Optimistic.
It says optimistic.
That was a happy accident.
And that was a happy accident.
Yeah.
So it was meant to be.
That's a really cute sweatshirt. What's the brand?
Target.
Slay.
I know.
I think that's a Slay.
Like they got like a new line of like different stuff. I was like, oh, this is really cute for Target.
Yeah. Are you optimistic by nature?
Actually, no.
Okay. I'm not either.
That's something I got to work on.
No, I'm really not either.
No. So, all right. So, where do you want to start?
Okay. I think that we should just start with one.
We're like dreading this topic.
I know, we're like, oh, we really don't want to do this. Okay. So 1, acknowledging that pain is normal.
Yeah.
Acknowledging 2, that back in Genesis, there was the fall of humanity. Yeah. So it's inevitable. Number 3, there is freedom and healing on the other side of it.
Yep.
And so I think acknowledging that it's real and that whatever you could be experiencing is not unique. It might be when it comes to like the details and stuff, but I do think that it's important to note that if you are on this side of heaven, you will experience some sort of relational pain. Yeah. And I think it's important to not let that kind of infiltrate your heart to the extent of not being able to navigate future relationships. So yeah. Do you want to give some sort of insight into maybe just like the most, might not even be the most painful, but probably the most, like the experience or the type of pain that you've navigated that has left like the biggest impact on you? And maybe it's like the root of that.
I'll be honest with you. I think that a couple of the biggest painful things that have just kind of shocked me and left me like not expecting that kind of pain was with ministry back in the day. Yeah. I say back in the day. And like I've healed from the experiences that we went through. And because I care and love about those people, I'm not going to delve into any kind of details. Right. But I will just say that, especially when it comes to leadership or things like that, you trust people at such a high level. So sometimes when things do not go as planned or expected, you can, just be kind of let down, and that can cause pain. And 2, I think like around expectations, they just get you know, and you have these expectations. We had these expectations of what our future would look like, with where we were, even just the simple fact of like living in Los Angeles, we thought we'd be there forever. And so that expectation, those not happening and just kind of flipping your life on its head is like, okay, this is a lot more painful than I would expect.
There's a lot more to grieve.
Yeah. So I think for me, just like some ministry experiences we went through with some trust issues, and then also just like some expectations not being met, even though we make those in our head. Yeah. Still just, that's where I think a lot of our pain has come from. Yeah. So what about you?
I would say, I think the most painful things I've experienced have almost fed a lie that I've believed for like a majority of my life. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but like this idea that I'm either like too much or not enough.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this on the podcast because you feel similarly, or we've talked about this in person. But I will say, like, it's almost like the feeling of trusting someone or like multiple people with parts of who you are, parts of your story, parts of your life experiences, the things you've walked through with certain people, and almost like binding to them in a way where this is going to always be here.
Yeah.
And then when you lose that, it's almost like, okay, well, what does that say about me? Yeah. And it's almost like refueling this lie that like, oh, I'm not enough or, oh, I'm too much for this to even be like, for this to have like even gone another way.
Yeah.
And I think I've just had to navigate, like, the most painful things have just been, I would say, like, loss of relationships and people that you would assume you should not have lost.
Right.
And I think that's similar to you.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you have this idea in your head of like, wow, trust is there.
Yeah.
Time is there. Investment is there. But it's like,
people shock you.
People will shock you. And I think I have a tendency to like self-blame.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's my fault or I caused this or I was a different way or if I handled this differently. So I think that has been probably like, those have been the situations that have been the hardest for me to like navigate and like work through. But I think it's been having to address a lie that's deeper in me. Yeah. That regardless of whoever's around me, if that isn't addressed, it's just going to be a continual thing of almost like a pain point, if that makes sense. So that's what I would say. And a lot of that is more like friendship wise. I haven't really been in ministry long enough, but I have been definitely blessed through like my introduction into it and who I'm around. I was telling Taylor a little bit of this earlier, but like I have been hurt through this position and I'm fiercely loyal by nature. And so I think that if there's times where
we both are. Yeah.
Like my family is compromised or there's things that have been said or communicated about them, I'm very like protective of that. And so I think there's been times like that I have experienced and I'm learning, but Logan has been more familiar most of his life with like that
this
part
side
of
ministry.
Yeah. That is new to me where it's like, wait, but it's not supposed to be like this in the church. Right. You know? Yeah. Which is a whole nother point of pain that just is hard to swallow because I feel like church is supposed to be the safe place, but
I think
we're all humans too.
I think that church hurt is a very big pain point for a lot of people, myself included. And it's learning, I think such a big part of it is learning that, yes, we do have church hurt. There are some people that are not doing it right. That's just the fact, okay? But for every 10 pastors that are doing it wrong, there's another 20 that are like doing it right and like in prayer and, you know, and we're human, right? Like we are humans trying to operate a church. It is not easy. Yeah. And we all have flaws. But I do think that there are certain like, I'm so blank for the word right now. There's a certain level to it that you have to maintain. Yeah. And you just do. It's part of it. But yeah, I think church hurt is a big pain point for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think that like that would almost bleed into the forgiveness aspect. Yeah. Where I think a lot of times like that's a really hard thing to do, especially if you haven't experienced accountability on the other side. And so I think like that's even something outside of even church that I've had to navigate is forgiving people that you may never speak to again, that may never have the opportunity to apologize to you. Yeah. And I think I've always felt, or I used to feel like, well, it's not fair. Like, I'm just going to grant them this forgiveness. And what about me? Like, what about the hurt that I've experienced? Yeah. Like, what about the acknowledgement there? And so that's not the point. Unfortunately, like that's not the point. Yeah. It's just allowing yourself to hit a place where forgiveness, if not there, really can infiltrate your heart and cause a lot of, you think about it like a toothache. Yeah. It's almost like just decay. And you really have to acknowledge what it is doing to your own heart. And I think like I've even had to navigate forgiveness through like losing my dad, and like there's elements of just loss in my life that like I won't have the opportunity to have that redeeming conversation with someone.
Right.
And I think that's almost, if like kind of not really like twisted, but in a way it's helped me navigate like earthside loss, because it's like I experienced the ultimate like experience of having to like walk through that with someone that's no longer here.
Right.
And then you have to do that with people on this side of heaven as well. Yeah. So I think it's just like an important layer of pain. That isn't like an easy journey to like forgive and walk through. But
I think that, gosh, there's so many facets to pain and forgiveness. But I think that with, pain, you know, I mean, my parents got divorced when I was 7 or 9, can't remember, one of the two. And so like I walked through a lot of pain, you know, because of that with my dad specifically. And just again, it's almost like sometimes there are relationships that is more painful to open up the can. Yeah. You know, because I'm a full believer in therapy and all of that stuff. And I do believe you can work through it. But I do believe also that there are certain times and spaces with people that emotional maturity is a thing. Okay. If you don't have it, if you feel like you are, we're not perfect, right? But if you feel like you are somewhat emotionally mature, you go to therapy, you really work on yourself, like in your relationship with the Lord and all this stuff. But then you also know that maybe someone like a family member is not in that place. And then you know that you would want to work with stuff together with them. But it's like that almost is going to hurt you more because the same level, like if you guys are not on the same level or same mindset or same thinking, and then you try to go in and you're in one place to work on something and they're just not there, it's just going to cause you more pain. Yes. So there's been a couple situations in my life where I'm like, you know what, I could try to open this up, but like I just don't think it's good for me or even the other person right now, you know? Yeah. So yeah, like you're saying, I do think there are some relationships in our life that we don't get that like full closure or forgiveness on.
Well, and I think it's great too, because like even before my dad passed away, there were like multiple things that there was this continual almost like need for forgiveness. And it's different when you're navigating, and you probably have experience with that too, with just like when it's your parent and it's supposed to be someone that is like so for you. Yeah. And then there's times where it feels like, how can it seem like that this person is, and it all just comes down to like their own lack of like accountability and them being able to forgive, I believe. And so it got to a point even with my dad, like before he passed away, that I think we've talked about this, maybe not, but I almost had to like see him as the child who his parents were inflicting pain unintentionally because of things that their parents so it's almost like this generational cycle, if not careful, that like it's just stuff that he didn't deal with. And I think that's why I'm also so passionate about if there is any like pain points in your life that you really feel like could be bleeding into other relationships, like working through that in therapy. Yeah. Because I think it has brought so much healing into my life, and even just like the way that I view relationships, and also too like forgiveness, and how I am guilty of things happening to me and experiences that I've had. And it almost has like, I kind of lean towards becoming jaded, and I'll like cut off any sort of like almost chance for like relationship. Yeah. And so I think I've had to be careful with like, okay, is this something that's more of like triggering something that's been painful before, or is this just like the normal part of being in relationship with people? But a lot of that has come through counseling. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to forgiveness, it's such a like weighty thing, because it's like, just because somebody does something doesn't make it right. And just because you forgive them doesn't make it right. Yes. And that is the balance that you just have to learn how to handle. Right. you know, there are things in my life where I'm like, or relationships or friendships, whatever, like I'm like, I forgive you. Like I am in a good spot and I'm in my spirit, like I'm good. It's just that it's still not cool.
Right.
That you did that. Or
that's
that
such a good thing to say, even if just like, it's not cool. Like that wasn't cool, but like, I forgive you.
Yeah.
But even on your point with like forgiveness, there is, I think, this misconception that like you forgive and you forget.
No,
and it's like, I think we've tied forgetting with forgiving, where it's like, oh, I can't forgive them because I can't forget this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Lisa Turkhurst wrote a book called Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
Yeah.
And if anyone needs to like dig deeper in the topic of forgiveness, I would like honestly highly recommend the book. And then to follow up, she wrote a book.
She has another one.
Good Boundaries and Goodbyes.
Oh. Wait, I was going to say a different one.
What were you going to say?
There's another one called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way.
Yeah. So I think that's her first one.
Is it really?
Yeah. And then it goes into Forgiving What You Can't Forget. And then it goes into Good Boundaries and Goodbyes.
Okay. Well, we just gave y'all a whole thing.
Give you homework.
To read.
But no, it really is true with like, you don't always have to hit a place of like, I mean, reality is we're not going to be able to forget.
Right.
Like those are going to be things. And I think you can also take the pain that you've went through, and Pastor Clint spoke about this, but it's like God can use our pain points to develop us and to almost be someone for someone else in different seasons of like our lives and their lives. And so a lot of times like we think in the moment of pain, like why is it this way?
Yeah.
Why do I have to go through this?
Yeah.
Why am I experiencing this? But on the other side of it, I can confidently say like there have been people that, because I'm open about a lot of you know stuff and whatnot, but like they've reached out to me of like, hey, this was like super helpful to me, or how would you navigate this? And so I think I've made peace with, okay, if I have to walk through something and experience pain, but it can help someone else, then like, oh, so be it. I mean, it definitely is still really hard, but I think that there is like value in that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that with it, you have to establish, which I think is like kind of a hot take. It shouldn't be, but boundaries.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Where
boundaries are
I don't
such a
know
hot
if you've
take.
had to instill boundaries within certain relationships.
I try.
Boundaries, let me just be so clear. Boundaries are not a punishment.
No.
And I think if you're someone who has had to implement boundaries, or you're someone who has received boundaries, then you can take it as either, I definitely think boundaries can be weaponized, where people can use them as a form of like punishment. But I think your heart behind it can decipher the two.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely not punishment. I think what you said, even by not approaching certain conversations out of like productivity of what's going to happen, that's what boundaries are for.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a way that relationships can exist in a healthy way versus like an unproductive, unhealthy way.
Yeah.
They're necessary sometimes, especially when there's been pain.
Yeah. I think I need to read her other two books because the first one, It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. I mean, I actually read that after we went through what we went through in ministry in the first few years. And it was, I mean, when things just get flipped on its head, or you're like, what the heck, I'm not expecting this, or your expectations are not met. Yes. It's a great book. Yeah. So,
see, I have not read that one yet, so I'll have to read it.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I think that through therapy, I'm actually talking about boundaries a lot right now. Because they're hard to give. They're hard to give people. Yeah. Because like you said, it makes the other person feel like maybe they're being punished or like whatever, but that's not the case. It's like you are trying to do what you feel is best for maybe you or your family or your mental health, and it's nothing against someone or the other person. Right. The boundary's for you. Yeah. So
the boundary is for you. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to put it, where you have to like, and we've talked about this even with like friendships and stuff, where you walk away from a certain environment or a certain hangout session, if you will, and you assess how you feel. Yeah. Have we talked? I might have been talking about this with Bailey, but you just walk out of certain situations and it's like, okay, how did I feel in that environment? How did I feel walking out of the environment? And then really just, and like you said, it really goes to like emotional maturity and like awareness, self-awareness too, to be able to like make those tough decisions. But if you're someone who has had to like implement boundaries or is even like thinking, oh my gosh, someone's put up a boundary with me.
Yeah.
You definitely have to just like almost step outside of yourself and establish why it could be happening and not taking it so much as a punishment, but almost like a blessing in disguise of like, okay, you know what? We can operate within this relationship in a positive way.
Yeah. Right.
And maybe even consider how you can implement boundaries in certain areas too.
Yeah. Speaking of books, there's another really good book.
Oh gosh.
It's, I hope I don't butcher it. Emotionally healthy spirituality. Yes. So you've read it.
I've heard of it. We did a course here on that one.
Oh, if you haven't read it, that is just.
Is it Pete Scazzaro?
10 out of 10. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. That is a great book.
Yeah. We'll drop all these books in the show notes.
Yeah. If I can remember, every time we upload the podcast, I'm like trying to remember the things that we said we were going to do. Okay, we're going to take notes. I'm really going to try to do that.
Yeah.
So that's a great book as well. And these are books that you could honestly, I feel like some books are not great audiobooks, but these, I feel like these ones are.
Yeah.
I feel like these are great when you're not listening to their better half on your drive.
Right.
You can turn on that book.
Yeah.
And those are really great. So, but yeah, I think a great segue is, Pastor Clint, he talked about pain partners, which I thought was really really good. And he just basically talked about how like Jesus is your pain partner, but on this earth, there are people that you're going to have that will be that
partner with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that will walk with you through the pain and be honest with you.
Yeah.
And, they can walk with you through the pain and be honest with you when it's hard. But also laugh with you and be with you in the good times. And so, I just think like a great question to ask yourself is like Clint was saying, who are my pain partners? So if you look at your friend group or your family and you don't have pain partners, cause like for me, I immediately, when he said that, I was like, I think I finally know who those people are.
Yeah.
And I couldn't always say that. Like it took me a long time to be able to say that. And part of that is coming here to North Carolina and finding those people. But, do you have pain partners?
Yeah. And I think also too, almost deciphering if you have pain partners. And if your answer is similar to even what you said, like, no, I don't, like in certain seasons, then truly, truly, truly like consider investing and finding those people that like, because listen, trust through relationships is a really hard thing to build.
Yeah.
But it's so quick to break. And so I think you really have to be careful with one, not assuming the worst. I'm raising my hand. I'm speaking to me and certain people, but then also too, like knowing that there's like shared equity there. So the people that are your pain partners should be this like same level of equity.
Yeah. Don't feel like your pain partners should not be you giving 80% and the other person giving 20%.
100%. It should be an equal.
We love percents.
Yeah. We love to break things down in a percent.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely think that there should be a similar level of investment.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how like trust is built as well. But yeah, you should have pain partners. And like, while Jesus is definitely like the ultimate pain partner, he did create us for community and to have people around us that we're able to like go through life with.
And we did an episode a couple of weeks ago on fear, which you guys really liked.
Yeah.
And we're really glad that you did. We got good feedback on that one.
Yeah.
But talking about that, and then also today talking about the subject of pain, like, sorry, again, our pastor is just a well of knowledge.
He really is.
So we were talking, and he said, like when Jesus was in the garden, like he literally sweat blood.
Yeah.
And that is theologically and physically proven that took place. And that is a indicator of like such an intense amount of stress that he was under, like as a human being. And so, I mean, like, I don't even think we could even fathom that sweating blood.
No.
Like, so the immense pain and stress that he was under, like he's been there. And it's like, you know that in the back of your head as a human, but then whenever he said that, it just reminded me like, oh, like, no, he literally was sweating blood. He was under such intense agony. Which is just wild to think about. So,
well, and I think also another thing that he said too is like, Jesus not only experienced pain for us, but he also experiences pain with us. And like, he understands on a human level to like what we experience, whether that's rejection, whether that's like questioning intention, whether that's like, I mean, people closest to him betrayed him. And it's like, I have really learned to be careful to assume that I would be any different.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
If Jesus experienced this, why would I not have, you know what I mean? Like, if the most perfect person that ever walked the earth still had people reject him, still had people make a mockery of him, still had people question him. I mean, they do what they did to him just simply for being who he was. It's almost like, Abby, like like pain
we're
is
gonna go through it.
We're going to go through it, but like there is comfort in knowing that he walks through all of that with us. And he's able to just like, and also too, this is really like cool, but I do think that like he places people in our lives around us for like that reason too, where I think that's where like discernment comes in. And like we talked about like pain partners and trust and all of that stuff. So having those people in your life that are.
And I think another thing is this kind of links back to our episode on fear again, but fear of pain too. Like, I mean, we didn't really touch on that in that episode, but just knowing like, okay, so like before your dad passed away, did you even think about, is he the first person that you have like fully lost in your life?
Your grandma was like,
your grandma.
Yes, that was the first person like really close to us.
So before your grandma passed, did you have this kind of like fear of that pain one day?
I mean, the only fear was my mom, was like losing my mom. But it was still this like unfathomable, like I couldn't really process it. Because I hadn't experienced it yet.
I think for me, like that is a pain that I fear very heavily.
Like losing people.
Lord Jesus, help me when it comes. But I am very grateful and lucky to have not experienced a human loss in my life yet. I'm not ready for that.
No,
I'm not ready. I don't think that's why like kudos to you, like props to you for like walking through that and handling that so well, because I don't even know how I'm even going to begin to do that.
I think it also too is like the circumstances as well. And I think like, so for like my grandma, it was knowing like, cause so a little bit of the story with her, she was diagnosed with like, I think it started in her gallbladder and then it moved to her liver, and it was like stage 4. Like she was really sick, but like we didn't know. And I think she ended up going to the hospital just because she just felt like really nauseous and like couldn't figure out why. And so they ran a bunch of tests and like red flags came up, and I was actually like on a cruise pulling off the coast, and my mom called me like hysterical.
Oh no.
And was like, Maul's really sick. And then I lost service. So I had to spend the whole trip knowing like my family was navigating this, and it was obviously like a bad diagnosis. But the entire time, like I mentioned in my previous podcast, my grandma was like, we called her Holy Dove. That was her nickname. She was like the prayer warrior of the family. Like so many people that knew her, like she would pray with you in the grocery line. Like it just didn't matter. Like she so heavily believed in prayer, and she was a like faithful woman. And so I never questioned where she was like going and like what her purpose. And I knew like on this side of heaven, like the Lord really was like, your service here is done. Like you have completed what I've sent you to complete. And she was so at peace. Like
I can understand how that would definitely help you navigate the pain a little bit more.
And something that someone said to me that I'll never forget through her loss was, hey, when I lost my grandmother or like someone that was close to them, they said, something that brought me comfort, because like saying you're so sorry is like of course.
Yeah.
But someone said like, if they had the opportunity to come back, they wouldn't. And I think that was like, oh my God. Like I even get goosebumps thinking about it because it's like, it's so true that they're in a place now that's so unimaginably like wonderful and beautiful and like where we all like to our heart of hearts like desire to be.
Yeah.
And whether or not like we've realized that or have accepted that or not, like that's just how like God created us for that longing. And so I think knowing that she's there and she's like so at peace and like what's so wild about that is that she never had like to experience that level of cancer in her body, never had pain medication.
That is so crazy.
And she just, I mean, she's like, I'm ready to be home. Like that's what she would say. Like, I'm just ready to go home.
Yeah.
And so I think the loss of her, while it hurt to me, she knew like it was her time and she trusted God to that extent. Just inspiring.
How old was she?
83 or 84.
That's crazy. Yeah.
She was in her 80s. And then my dad, this was a little bit more sudden and like our relationship was a little bit more bumpy.
Right. Yeah.
But I will say like something that helped me was my dad was really physically ill. Like a lot of his life, he struggled with his health. And so I think what brought me a lot of peace was knowing that like he's whole again and he's not physically in pain and struggling.
Yeah.
Clearly that's a really hard place to get to.
No,
but I think
of course.
If anything for you, it would be to, we've talked about this a little bit before of just like regret and like processing like almost definite loss where there's no hope or like chance for redemption. Yeah. And I think that the Lord will help you and like he really will like.
Yeah. I think too, something that I will probably when it comes to this kind of pain that I will end up having to navigate at some point in my life is if those people know Jesus or not.
Yes. And that's a huge, that's a really difficult thing to like, I have not experienced that level of pain of like.
Yeah. Cause like several of my family members, like they don't follow the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's, that'll be a tough pain.
Yeah.
So again, these are future pains, but I'm talking about like it is a fear that I have of one day having to walk through that pain. So, I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
And I think that's also why like, and I've said this too, just even about like losing a parent where it's like I'm not going to be the only person that loses a parent. And so like, if I have a friend that has to walk through that, like,
right.
I want to be that person that I can like kind of what Pastor Clint was talking about with like pain partners. It's like, I truly believe that the way that we walk pain out and the way that like we allow God to use us through the pain that we walk through can really help other people. And so like, if I had to experience it prematurely at my mid-20s to like lose my dad and walk through that, if I can be a help to someone else that's having to navigate that type of loss, then I think like I'm open to like allowing him to use me in whatever way.
Yeah.
Like I need to be used.
And he will.
Yeah.
And even through this podcast, I'm sure there are people that are listening that have already walked through the pain of loss and I'm sure they're going to find hope through listening to you talk about it. So,
well, if anyone does need a pain partner through like grief and loss through death, like, you can reach out to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think one of the cool things about doing this podcast is, just building that community. And I think, and we have a lot of cool ideas that we will eventually get to as it grows, but for more of a community based like feel. And just like knowing, again, there are people in this community that have walked through things that maybe I haven't walked through, or like, I think it's just like a really cool, a cool thing.
It really is a cool thing.
I just have to say this though.
Yeah.
So when we did our podcast on fear, it was so funny the other night. And while we're also talking about people passing away and stuff, the other night, Drew and I were with our oldest daughter, Selah. She's 5. And we were just laying on the couch, just chatting, having a good time. And Drew was like, just trying to be sweet. And he was like, hey, he's like, you have my nose. You know that?
Yeah. And side note, these kids are Drew's clones.
All Sutton has my brown hair. That's it.
Yeah.
And not even like mine's so dark. But yeah, so he was like, you have my nose. You know that? He's like, they call it the Adrian nose. Do you know why? And she was like, who's Adrian? He was like, well, it's my grandma Adrian, but she's in heaven now. And tears, crying.
Her?
Yes. Because she says she doesn't want to go to heaven. It was immediate fear.
Yeah.
In her mind. And it was crazy to watch her respond to that in the most human way, of course. And of course, like, even though like we tried to explain to her, like, heaven's the best place you're ever gonna go, and like it's gonna be so much better than here. And she was still just distraught. And 2 days later, still asking me, Mommy, I don't want to go to heaven yet. Are we gonna go to heaven yet? Like, because she goes, but I'll lose my room and I'll lose everything. And and so she can't grasp that. Yeah. And so that's fun too.
That's like literally a child. That's like child in like the best way too.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like even children like have these fears. Yeah. And so I think that was interesting too. I just had to say that from our last podcast, but
bless her heart.
Yeah. She's literally 3 days later still asking me. And we got to the point where we just had to go, honey, let's just not talk about it right now.
It's going to be okay.
Because no matter how much we tried to explain to her like the goodness of it, she still was just, it's like can't comprehend it. Yeah. So we were like, it's a long time from now, honey. Let's just talk about it.
We're going to go ahead and table this, sweetheart.
That was the only way we could get past it.
That's so sweet.
But yeah, so I think, there are all different kinds of pain. And we've even talked about this before, like even grieving, it doesn't have to be just a loss of a human. And so walking through the pain of loss, no matter what that looks like,
or like even lack of fulfillment too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. 100%. I could talk to you about that all day.
Next podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great too. And I think, are there any other areas of like pain that you would like to touch on that you feel like
I think just to like sum it up, I would just say, like, if you're someone who has experienced pain, you feel really alone, don't be afraid to let the Lord use you and use that pain for something good. And it might not help in the moment, and it might not help like with whatever you might be navigating right now. I can promise you that there's so much like peace that comes with having pain, like purpose in the pain. And I know it sounds so cliche, like, oh, there's purpose in the pain, but I really do think that it's almost like you walk with more of an assurance and confidence in Jesus than without it.
And Clint said too, like, he was like, God's goal for us is not comfort. Okay.
No,
it's character development. Yeah. Like, we are supposed to continuously be growing.
Yes.
And so it's like, as awesome as it is to feel comfortable, like, how else are we supposed to get better? How else are we supposed to grow?
That is so true. And I think like, and that even goes to if you've experienced pain and you just like refuse to let yourself potentially be in a situation where you could experience it again, that's where you stay. You stay comfortable. You're like, oh, I'm going to self-preserve. Yeah. And I'm going to make sure that like this doesn't happen again. I've been there. Yeah. And I sometimes still fall into that. But I do think that that is not the best end result for us and what like God wants for us. And also too, just to know that like, I think a lot of times, if not careful, like even Pastor Clint said this during this message, he's like, God can sometimes be your pain point. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we're not honest enough about that and how whatever, like God can handle it. Yeah. And I think bringing your pain to him, bringing any sort of disappointment, shortcoming, whatever you think he hasn't fulfilled or he, he's always good on his promise, but I think that like he wants you to bring all of that to him. And I think that's where he can just know he can handle it. Like,
he can handle it.
He can handle the anger and all of that stuff. He can handle it, but it's what happens when you bring it to him and how it definitely like infiltrates the development of you.
Yeah. And obviously too, like there's the other side of pain, like getting to the other side of it and recognizing like what it did in you, how it grew you. Yeah. And I think it's hard because sometimes that could be years, right? Yeah. Like it could be days, months, years when it's those longer periods of time. Just having to keep the optimism, like you said.
Keeping the optimism and also to knowing that like it's not linear.
Yeah.
it's going to be a journey.
Yeah.
But I think like allowing yourself to open up to the healing of it. Yeah. And also to just working on like the forgiveness aspect. And then if there's people in your life that have caused you pain that you've had to work to forgive, it is okay to have boundaries. Yeah. It is okay to protect. And, you know, Jesus had boundaries. Like he modeled boundaries. Yeah. And so I think that's in the good boundaries and goodbyes. Like he was the ultimate example of what that looks like relationally. And I think.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like there's this misconception with them that like, hey, we need to squash this. Like boundaries are healthy.
They are. Yeah. Yeah. And just remembering that like you can have peace in your heart and be totally good, even though what they did wasn't cool.
Yeah. Okay. It wasn't cool. Do you have any like final thoughts when it comes to like this whole pain, forgiveness, boundaries?
You know, I think I'm in a couple places of pain right now that were a little bit, I don't know if unexpected. I think a little bit unexpected. 2025 hit and I feel like just a lot of stuff is kind of coming up. Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with like the fast and stuff, honestly, that we did. But for me, I'm dealing with a couple relationships that are causing me some pain. And then just some health stuff that's causing me some pain. So I kind of have two different avenues that both of those areas for me, it's really hard to remain hopeful. Yeah. Like it's really hard to stay optimistic. Like it really is. But I think that would be my final piece of advice. It's just like waking up every day and just trying to, I mean, it's not easy. I'm sitting here saying like, I'm struggling with this. So, but just waking up every day the best you can and being like, I'm going to be hopeful. There is hope. Like Pastor Clint said, be a hoper.
Yeah. Let's be hopers. He said, it's a word.
That is the way. Like, if you have not heard him talk, he has the greatest Southern accent.
Yo, he's my father-in-law. I don't know if we've said that.
Yeah, right. How have we not said that? Okay, our pastor is Abby's father-in-law. And just the greatest, like,
which honestly,
Southern accent. And not just the fact that he has the great Southern accent, it's the fact that Abby, Logan, Bailey, they all do his accent when they talk about it.
But okay, so even speaking about pain, like this is how cool God is, right? So like things that I've experienced through like an earthly father relationship. Yeah. And like ways that like I've been hurt in that, like there has been so much redemption through like my relationship with my father-in-law. Yeah. And so I think that like you just have to find those ways that like God will meet these areas of your heart through like healing or someone else or whatever it is. It's so easy to like pass it by or like take it for granted. But I do think like he is so involved in all the different facets.
I love that.
Yeah. So just like being aware of it. And like I would say like stepping back and even to your point, like you're navigating right now, just pain through relationships and pain through like things that you're experiencing where like, I know you're going to see the other side of it. Yeah. And I know that's like really hard to swallow it because when you're in the middle of it and you're navigating it, it's like, there's no way, like, how could they, how could I, like, how could this be? But I can confidently say like, it's almost similar to when like the friends lowered this is my favorite. And I know it has kind of to do with sin and like forgiveness and stuff of the sins, but it is like such a model for friendships and how like really surrounding yourself with people who can have the faith for you when it seems like you're just in so much pain that it's hard to like bring yourself to him. It's like you have friends that are willing to like climb the roof and lower you into the house, you know?
That's great.
So you're going to come through the other side of it, sister.
We will.
Yeah, you will.
Hey, you're going to cross your finish line quite literally, Abby.
Yeah, I was going to say the next time that we have the podcast, I'm going to have ran the race. That's crazy. Maybe I'll wear my medal.
No, you should. You come on here with your medal.
With
you have to.
Oh God, please let me get a medal.
Doesn't everybody get a medal?
If you finish.
Duh, you're going to finish.
Okay. Stop. I hope so, Lord willing.
You already ran a pretty much marathon already. 21. Oof. I mean, come on.
It was rough.
But you know what? We hope that you guys are encouraged in this because pain is not an easy thing to talk about. No. And I think that This will probably be a topic that we talk about again, I think, too, just because it's such a deep topic that it's hard to cover in like 45 minutes. But just be a hoper.
Be a hoper, everybody. And in the meantime, there's hope. And we love you.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Are we still going to that Valentine's Day thing?
Oh my gosh, no, we have to.
Wait, okay, cut. I can't call it Valentine's because Valentine's already passed. Are we still going to that pop-up?
Yes.
Okay. Me and Abby are going to go to this pop-up that apparently, are they still having tattoos?
Yeah.
Guys, I'm so scared.
Okay, so I talked about this with Logan the other day. I have a couple, but I love like small ones.
Yes.
And I told him about this the other day and I was like, I really want to get like more. And he goes, you know, all those celebrities are getting their tattoos removed. And I'm like, good thing I'm not a celebrity. I mean, I love my little tattoos.
I do too. They're so cute.
But yeah, we might end up doing that. Or like a permanent bracelet or something if you're feeling a little bit less inclined.
Yeah, like we're going to this pop-up and I guess they're going to have like just the little tattoos.
Yeah, like the little mini ones.
And I have fully given natural childbirth, but I'm still very afraid of getting a tattoo. So we shall see if
You can totally do it. 100% you can do it.
We'll update you on the next pod. I'll show you my tattoo.
And
if
until
I get
then, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.